Hey everyone, today we're with Andy and Mark from WCC. They recently participated in Springfest in Sydney, and Andy took it home and Mark came top 8. So congrats, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Funnily enough, it was Andy's first time playing in Springfest because he had to judge every single other one, and looks like the results have shown, and they actually topped with a very, very interesting build of Bermuda Triangle. Most people think of Ange-Melody-Harmony, but this one has more words added to the end of it. So I'll let the experts talk about this deck. Go at it, guys.
Alright, so both Andy and I really like playing Bermuda. And when Ange-Melody-Harmony became popular, we've been testing it. And it slowly got to the point where we realized that deck doesn't seem very amazing when your opponent knows what they're doing. You end up with a bunch of grey threes in your hand and you feel very helpless. So we decided to look for alternatives. And we got a funny idea from Kai, who suggested, why don't we just put a bunch of things together? So we can put Angie, Melody, and Harmony. And next minute, we have this deck.
Yeah, actually, like when Kai mentioned it, I just went and grabbed my old Angie deck and just took out all the non-Harmony, non-Angie, non-Melody cards, and just swapped them with new standard cards. It's pretty much standard, man. Pretty much like standard here. That's why, like, the full name of this deck is Angie, Melody, Harmony, Standard Plus.
Okay, alright. So for this one, we'll go through most of the deck. Let's go through each of the cards, why they're in there, because it's actually pretty refreshing to see a deck that's not a different build of Gold Paladin. So let's go for it, guys.
Alright. I think the most important, one of the most important cards in the deck is Einar. This card is your combo enabler. It's the only reason it's the only card that we need to stride into Alk.
And that's the only card we kept from our old Harmony build.
Yeah. Next,
actually, no. The only grey one that we kept.
Yeah. Next, Spiana. It serves as both a countercharger and recycling your Great Freeze. Yeah, so pretty self-explanatory. Sierra, very good early game card. It digs for your Melody units and also prevents your opponent from attacking your reguards when you're rushing them in the beginning.
And then in the grade 2s, we have Shandee, which is an amazing card on its own. Counterblast 1, draw 2. That's probably the most amazing drawing effect you can have in Vanguard apart from Ghidorah Overwhelm. But that's on its own level. It draws your cards, it gains 5k, which means you can play an early aggressive game if you need to. And then we have Lislot, which is another amazing card on its own. Right, playing it down simply gives you a +1, fulfills your grade 2 aggressive plan if you need to. And then it's still relevant in the later game because even if you have a full field, you can put that card into your soul, and that helps replenishing the soul cost that you need to pay for.
It's also a combo extender, but we'll get more to that later.
And then Speaker is your combo piece. That's how you make multiple lines of attacks. Pretty straightforward there. And lastly, we have Shandee, which is an amazing card because it's another heal in your deck. That's not a trigger. You have multiple G-Guards that you can use. The only reason why we're not playing 4 is because we cannot have 4 in the deck and fit everything else.
Yeah. Next, grade 3, Angie, one of the key players of the deck. The best part about Angie being in this deck is that it actually is there to reset your field.
Yeah, the draw 1 and the search is very nice on its own, but it's actually not super important when we get to the later game. It's more important that we can bounce our own cards back to the field so we can trigger Harmony again.
Yeah. Next we have Caro. Caro is there. It serves as your secondary right target after Angie, and also you do need to see at least one Caro as part of your strong offensive combo play.
And getting a force marker is always nice when you are attacking 6 to 7 times a turn.
Yep. Next, probably very important grade 3, Sonata. Sonata is good in this deck because the more Sonatas you have in play, the stronger your attacks are. Just like standard.
And that's actually what allowed this deck to function similar to the old G deck. Back then, we had to use Lucille, which gives power to your units so that you are hitting
More and more numbers as you
Yep.
do the combo.
And then we realized that we can't fit all of these cards and Lucille into the deck, but at the same time, because Sonatas are already hitting so much power on its own, we have decided that the Lucilles are no longer needed.
Yeah, like the one main difference between this deck and the old deck is the old deck ramps up as you do your combo. This one, from the very moment you start the combo, you're just hitting for insane numbers.
And then in triggers, we have 7 crit, which is quite standard, 4 heal. We didn't play any of the old heal because it wasn't really needed, and in this format where everything is quite aggressive, it's simply better to have a 10k trigger with 20k shield. We have Crook, which is our combo piece. It's a harmony unit. It's limited. There's no reason not to play it. And we're playing draw Sentinels because we can't really fit the Grey 1 Sentinel in.
Yeah, grade 1's pretty important towards your combo, so unlucky. Next we have the starter, Loris. This is probably one of the most important. It's the best starter in the deck. 1, because it's harmony. 2, because it gives you random soul, so you can keep using your Angie and Sierra. And yeah, it's just a really good starter.
And then in our G zone, we have 4 Alk. That's your big play. If you have the correct combo pieces, Alk is a very lethal turn. But you don't always have your combo pieces, which is why we have our secondary stride. That's Shandee.
It's also our first stride most of the time.
Because it reads, look at the top 10 of your cards, your deck, and choose the combo pieces that you want and put it onto your field.
And
then we have Andy's favorite card,
Progenitor! Ballerina! This card is amazing. Like, we play 2, and there's a very good reason for it. You shred it the first time, like if you're playing an aggressive grade 2 game, your opponent's most likely on high damage. You shred it first, the only way for your opponent to survive is to have multiple sentinels. It baits out all the sentinels so that when you go into it again, which is why we play a second one, they actually have no defensive play against you.
And then in those games where you don't draw your Angie and you have to ride your Caro, there are chances where, just like the game that Andy played in the finals, he didn't draw an Angie.
I didn't see a single Angie.
And because of that, he couldn't really pay for his strike costs. And, well, guess what? Ballerina allows you to strike for free, which is quite relevant here.
It saved me a lot of cards. Actually, because of that, I actually had enough to survive. Exactly enough.
And then we have Seabreeze, which is, I think, a very big surprise factor for those who are not prepared for it. It allows you to make plays if they decide to stay on grade 2. And if they are not expecting it, you might have a chance of just killing them.
Yeah, sometimes going to Seabreeze, actually the counterblast doesn't matter too much because you have Spiana, and simply going to Seabreeze turns on your speaker and your croc, and generally that is enough to kill your opponent.
And then we have Megiddo, which is a good card when all your melodies are in the bin. You call them back out. You have 4 Sonatas, which all hit for a very high number, and it serves as a good finisher when the situation is correct.
And lastly, we have Ange. Ange is there just for the Link Joker matchup. Sometimes in the longer games you find out you don't have enough soul. Even though your grade 3 Angie serves the purpose of resetting your field pretty much, even when it's locked, sometimes you just can't bounce enough units with it. So that's why we have the Ange Strike, just in case. Just in case.
I don't think either of us really used it.
Never played against Link Joker.
I'd just like to point out how brutal Seabreeze is in this deck, because a lot of other decks just go into Seabreeze because they kind of can, but then their first stride is that Seabreeze turn is not very lethal at all, it's just triple drive, but this one you can actually multi-attack and do a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's because most of the combo
relies
pieces.
on our rear guard and not the vanguard. The vanguard is
It's an extender.
yeah, exactly. If you sea breeze, drop your melody units, drop a speaker, then you are attacking for 40k columns multiple times while they're on grade 2.
Okay, alright, that's great. So, now that we know all the cards in the deck, let's talk about the overall game plan.
G-Zone.
Let's talk about
the Guardians, man.
Oh yeah, G-Guardian, sorry.
Don't forget Ellie, which is probably the most OP card in this G zone.
I love just dropping, like, just calling it out, and it's 45k shield.
We're using 3 of them because it's very necessary. Unlike before, where we can afford to just use 2. These days, the meta is quite aggressive, and it's quite important that the first time you use Ellie, you already have a nice power boost on it. So it's almost guaranteed that you're going to flip a Ellie with your Shandee, so that your next Ellie is just naturally big.
Next is Citron. Citron is there. There's a couple of like nice gimmicky plays with it. Like for example, you can call a Spiana during your opponent's turn to return an Ange from your drop back into your deck, because you can't normally return an Ange otherwise, because Spiana specifically says that you have to choose a grade 3 on the field, and when you stride, your Ange is no longer a grade 3.
And then Citron is also there for your Nubatama matchup, which happens to be one of my Swiss round opponents. He was quite sad that he couldn't do 2 dominate attacks. And then lastly we have Shandee, simply because
We
this
sometimes
goes
have
to
19 cards in
19
hand.
cards, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the overall idea of what you want to do with this deck in a game. The overall game plan.
Sure. So the game plan of this deck is actually quite versatile. There are multiple things that we can do and want to do depending on what we're playing against. We want to be aggressive in the early game where we need to be, and in that sense, Sierra, Shandee, and Lislot will do those things for us. If you play a Lislot and top deck your Caro, that's amazing. Your CA stops them from attacking your rearguard, so you can deny their damage denial. And then you also want to get hand when you're playing against a more aggressive deck, like Gold Paladins.
Gold Paladin.
And Neo, I suppose. Yeah. So Shandee, again, counterblast 1, draw 2. That's amazing. I can't stress that enough.
And Counterblast isn't that much of a problem because you have Spiana. And yeah, the other part of the deck is your main combo, which involves Aina and Alk, but we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, so we that ties into the part where we want to have lethal turns when we need to make the kill, because against matchups like Ichikishima, there are turns where you know you just have to win there, and you have your Alk to make your big play for you, and you have your Progenitor Dragon. Both of those can be very lethal when you have the correct cards.
Okay. Alright, so let's talk a bit about the matchups in the meta now with this deck. I'm going to talk like Ichikishima. How does it fare?
Yep. So we kind of just mentioned it.
Yeah.
Ichikishima, their win con is
Second stride.
strike or
or
Ichikishima with a Tom. There's no way this deck can guard. So that means we got to win before that happens.
Yep. So against that matchup, the line of play is to go very, very aggressive with your Lizelots and Shandee. Sia is not so much important because they're also trying to do the same. Generally, because we actually have a better early game than them, most of the time they end up on a higher damage. And so you just aim to kill them on the first stride, either most likely with Progenitor. Because the only way for them to stop Progenitor is they have 2 Sentinels with a protect marker, because you're most likely doing about 3 to 4 attacks, 3 to 5 attacks with Progenitor, and they have to have that much Sentinels to stop you, so otherwise they just die.
Okay, alright. And I think Mark actually beat one.
I came across one of them in my Swiss round, and what happened was quite similar game plan, but instead of going to Progenitor, I actually went to my Alk after G-guarding once, and I killed him from there because he didn't have enough cards to guard.
Okay, alright. What about your more aggressive matchups? Because now there's a lot of more aggressive decks. Things like Gold Paladin, Neo Nectar. How do you deal with that with this deck?
Well, with against Gold Paladin, the most important card you want to see is Shandee. Shandee pretty much just, as we said, can't stress enough. Counterblast 1, draw 2, just gives you enough cards to survive. Like against Gold, right? The longer the game goes, the better it is for you.
And it's just about making sure that you don't give them the correct condition so that they can kill you. So stuff like playing around the Spirits by not giving them 2 damage in the early game, probably playing around a potential G Guardian that they can play so that they can't use Ultima the next turn.
Yep.
Those are the things that you're looking for. And then, because Gold Paladins doesn't actually have that many hands, so it's quite likely that you can get to a turn where you can kill them from,
Low
say,
damage.
3 or 2 damage even.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, that's what almost happened in top 8. But unfortunately, Toby was a better player.
Double
with a
heal.
Okay, and what about Neo Nectars?
Neo Nectar's free.
Yeah, Neo Nectar is much easier to deal with than Golds. They're as good as their stride is. Their attacks are only 30, 40 Ks at the most.
Which Ellie deals with.
Yep.
And the most important part is your Ange reads Soul Blast 1, kill 2 tokens for free, and draw a card.
And search 1.
Oh, no, but that's not killing 2 though.
Okay. Alright. So, and then we've got the combo decks in the middle. We got, like, DI is, like, the biggest one.
Yeah.
How does this deal with that?
Well, their grade 2 game is nothing compared to yours, so you just rush them like no tomorrow. And especially if you pull off your CS like I did, then they can only attack your Vanguard, so unlucky, right?
Don't give them first try. Aggressively bash them in the early game, and it's quite hard for them to sustain.
Yeah, they can't survive. They can't survive your first stride.
There's a good chance that if you hit them hard enough, they simply don't have the correct cards, even if they survive.
Yeah.
And becomes them not being able to kill you.
Yeah, Progenitor does like wonders in that, because they just have to guard and they just lose their hand. Well, you lose your hand as well, but then they don't have anything to play against you. So.
And then I suppose Nova is quite similar
Same.
in that sense.
Don't give them first stride, and that deck's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like Nova also like gives you a bunch of hand. It fills up your hand for your Progenitor. So, and also like Nova Grappler reads, draw all your combo pieces and all your cards so that you can Progenitor them.
Okay, alright. So, I think now we'll just wrap it up a bit before we go to the combo section. So, any shout outs or things you'd like to add?
Yeah, shout outs to the whole of WCC, and especially my team for carrying me through the Swiss so I can carry them in top cut. What?
Sure. Yeah. Shout out to my teammates as well. Kai helped a lot. He was basically the punching bag. He took out 10 decks out of his bag so I can test almost against everything. And then Calvin providing a very good testing environment for us called Games Metal Banks. And shout out to Andy, who provided most of the cards that I needed.
WCC TCG.
Yeah. And okay, alright, that should be about it. Let's all say Mantap Jiwa and head to the next combo video then. Alright?
Mantap Jiwa. Alright, so we'll start off with our Alk Combo, which is probably the most basic one and also the most powerful one. And this is actually doable without having 2 Harmony units in your hand if you're on GB2. So what we do is we will stride with Ayana from your hand and Caro.
Yep, so we stride like this.
And then Alk will come in, and that triggers Harmony. So Ayana goes into Harmony state, and its effect gives Caro the Harmony ability. And then we'll use Angie to Soul Blast 1 and bounce our Ayana back to hand and search something and draw a card, doesn't matter. And then we'll play our next booster down, which is our Sonata, and play another Ayana. So again, Ayana goes into Harmony state and gives the Harmony ability to Sonata, so that both of our back row now has Harmony ability. Next, we're going to use Alk, pay for its cost, counterblast 1, bounce Ayana and one of the grade 3s. And then we'll just do the same thing again. Play our grade 3 down, play our Ayana, and our grade 3 gains Harmony ability again. And then now we'll play our front rolls, Speaker and Sonata. If you have a first Sonata, that will be great. We can play it over the Ayana, which we don't need anymore, so that your Sonatas hits for bigger. In battle, we have Sonata attacking. That's a power of 1, 2, 3, 5Ks, and the 5K from Alk, so that's 33. And then next, we have Speaker, boosted by Caro, counterblast 1. We bounce our Sonata back, play it down, and our Speaker column is 22, 32 from Alk, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5K, so that's 52. Sonata, which was 33 before, is now 36 thanks to the 3K from Speaker, which actually becomes relevant if you're playing against a 11K Vanguard. And then we attack with our Alk, boost it for very high power, bouncing 2, and calling those 2 cards back down in a different position so that we can boost our Speaker again. Drive check, whatever. And then we have Sonata again attacking for 33, Speaker attacking for 52, and Sonata attacking for 33 again, on top of 36, and plus whatever trigger that you got. Simple.
It's the basic Alk Combo. Next.
Alright, so now we have the Progenitor Dragon turn, which is even more simple, to be very honest. So we'll discard our Angie to try Progenitor. We can use our skill if we like. Bounce one of these back, because it's a grey one, it becomes an extra card that you can discard with. Draw a card, that may be a grey one. That's good. And we'll search for our Angie if we have any in the deck.
Unlucky.
Okay, that's fine. That usually happens. And then we'll play our Speaker down. We'll have a second Speaker in hand ready. We'll play our Sonata, drop them all down, however many you have in hand. And then we'll just start attacking our opponent. That hits 28 in this case. And then if your Crook is still in your deck, then I think this is a pretty good time to attack with your Vanguard. You have a chance of triggering your stand. If you do, that's great. You can do it, attack again. And then Speaker will go into a second Speaker. And then the second Speaker will bounce the first Speaker back and bring the Sonata back. So we're looking at a minimum of 5 attacks, 6 if you do trigger the stand trigger, and you have all these grey ones in your hand that you can discard to get rid of their guards. Quite lethal if they don't have enough sentinels.
And if they're on high damage, even like on 4 damage or 3 damage, this is quite lethal, especially against Gold Paladin.
And then you can change this up a little bit. So for example, the main requirement is 2 Speaker, because that gives you the most amount of attacks you want, without relying on other things. If your stand trigger is in your hand, and if you have a force marker, you can put a stand trigger here, put a Sonata there, and put the Speaker here. So we can go Sonata attacks, and then Speaker attacks to bring the second Speaker out. Boosted by Crook. Yep. Sonata out, and then Crook can bounce the Speaker back. Bring out another Sonata if you have one. And then your Crook is in your deck, so you have a chance of triggering it, so you can attack with that. And then if you do trigger it, then you have done 7 attacks, 8 attacks. That's very lethal. But this is not so great if you don't have the force marker, because crit plus speaker was only 16k, which is not great. It's a bit too weak. They will intercept and you cannot get rid of it. But otherwise, it's one of the options that you can do. Alright, next we can talk about the Megiddo play. Megiddo actually requires a bit of setup or condition to pull off an impressive turn. You probably want to do it when most of your melodies are in the bin. I'll say you want to have at least 3 sonata to make it impressive. Otherwise, your attacks might be a bit too weak. And then ideally, we also want to have 1 carry in hand and another one in the deck to search for. So what we'll do is we'll ride it, get a force marker, so boss 2, grab our second carry, pay for our ultimate strike cost, and then counter boss 2, bring out all those sonatas that we can, and the carry as well. So each of these melody units has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5Ks worth on top of them. So they are attacking for 38 plus your force marker, which is 48. So, and every single one of your attacks is able to use the force marker, because you can start moving them to the force marker after the first one has done it. And then on this attack, if you still have your stand trigger in the deck, you can attack with your Vanguard, hopefully trigger your stand trigger, and then that will give you another attack with the force marker by bringing it over. Of course, that your game doesn't always go ideal as we like it to be. Sometimes you might not have enough sonatas in the bin. That's fine. We can probably make a similar amount of powerful attacks using speaker if we can have the extra counterblast for it. So instead of bringing out sonata, we'll bring out our speaker with the 1 counterblast left, and then we do a similar attacking pattern. 1, bring that, 2, 3, bring speaker here, and then this speaker can be boosted by sonata, bouncing one of your sonatas back to hand, bring it to play, and then after this attack, the sonata can come to the force marker. So you are still doing the same amount of attack, and in fact one of your attack, which is a speaker attack, is much more powerful because it's boosted by the sonata at the cost of having to have 1 extra counterblast for it. Yep. Alright, so for our very last part, we'll talk about Shandee, which is probably the most interesting stride in this deck. Because of the fact that you're looking at top 10 and the uncertainty with it, it opens up a lot of possibilities. So the most simple case is getting very lucky and grabbing a lot of melody units when you attack. So of the top 10, you see 4 of those, you bring them all out, and then you now suddenly have 2 columns and they're all hitting like a truck. Your Shandee doesn't have the extra crit, but that's fine. We don't really care about that in this stage. There are other interesting things you can do. So for example, that could have been a speaker, and then extra counterblast will mean your speaker can utilize that. If you didn't have the counterblast, then there's a chance you might have seen a Spiana as part of the top 10. And that will allow you to recover the 1 extra counterblast. So you can still do your speaker play. And then some other interesting things are you can actually grab key cards that you want for your defensive play next turn. So for example, you could have called a null draw trigger, and then you use a speaker to bring back to your hand and call something else to continue attacking. And then similarly, you could have called your stand trigger and your Shandee, and then that will achieve a similar function. You bring the Shandee back so you can use it for G guarding next turn. If you really need to, you can probably bring out a heal here as well to do a similar thing. And then there are cases where we start off with not such a great feel. We might only have 2 units that's in harmony. And then out of the top 10, you can see a Lislot, and let's say a great one. And you can still bring something out of your top deck. And if we see a grade 3, that will be great, we can bring it out. Otherwise, if it's just a trigger, we'll put it into soul so that we have some extra soul for the next turn. Anything else Andy wants to add?
No.
Okay. So I think that brings our combo session to a conclusion. Thank you guys for watching. If you like our content, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. Yeah.